They say some wounds don't bleed, they echo. When she left, she didn't cry, didn't shout, just whispered maybe fate doesn't want us together, then walked away, leaving her scent and a silver necklace on my nightstand. The pendant had our initials engraved on a promise that meant forever. I waited. Days, weeks, months. She vanished completely, as if the earth had swallowed her. Her number disconnected. Her apartment empty. Even her friends acted like she never existed. I tried to move on, but grief became my shadow. I drowned myself in work, skipped meals, ignored sleep, until one night, exhaustion caught me while driving. The crash was loud, like the universe finally exhaling all my denial. When I opened my eyes, everything was white. My body weak, my breath shallow. A woman stood by my bed, face hidden by a surgical mask, eyes filled with quiet sorrow. And there it was, the necklace. Her necklace. The one I buried with my heart. She looked at me, her voice trembling. You shouldn't have survived that. That was the moment I realized fate hadn't taken her. It had hidden her. And now it was bringing her back. With secrets I wasn't ready to face. It was the kind of rain that blurred everything. Edges of buildings, headlights, even time itself. I remember standing beneath the cafe awning, watching the downpour flood the cobblestones. The air smelled of wet earth and burnt espresso. My sketchbook was soaked through, ink bleeding like open veins across the page. That's when she appeared, running from the corner with a hand over her head. Hair plastered to her cheeks, laughter slipping through her breath. She stopped beside me, eyes glimmering with apology and amusement. Guess we picked the wrong day to chase dreams, she said. Brushing rain from her sleeves, her voice was soft, not fragile, but careful, as if she weighed every word before letting it fall. I smiled awkwardly, gesturing at my ruined sketchbook. Depends on the dream. She leaned closer, peering at the smudged drawings. Maybe the rain's just finishing what you started. That was her, gentle, impulsive, luminous. The kind of person who could turn ruin into poetry without realizing it. When thunder rolled overhead, she pulled a small umbrella from her bag, shook it open, and held it between us. We can share, she offered. Are you sure? Of course. What's art without a little risk of drowning? We walked in silence at first, the umbrella barely covering both of us. Her shoulder brushed mine now and then, accidental, electric. The rain drummed above us like a heartbeat we couldn't control. Her name was Hannah, a medical student. Sleep-deprived, caffeine-dependent, impossibly hopeful. She spoke about anatomy, as if it were poetry. Veins as rivers, hearts as storms. I told her I was an artist, that I painted people I'd never met, trying to capture the emotion they didn't show the world. She smiled, tilting her head. So you draw souls, not faces. The way she said it made me feel seen. We ended up ducking into the same cafe we'd been hiding under. The bell above the door chimed, and warmth rushed around us. She ordered black coffee, 2 sugars. I ordered tea I didn't even want, just to make her laugh. And she did, that quiet kind of laughter that fills the spaces words can't. We sat by the window, watching raindrops chase each other down the glass. She talked about her mother's hospital shifts, about wanting to heal people not just with medicine but with kindness. Pain, she said, stirring her cup slowly, isn't always a wound. Sometimes it's just a reminder that we've felt deeply. I told her I painted for the same reason, to prove feelings still mattered. She looked at me then, really looked as if she were memorizing something. Maybe we're both trying to save the same thing, she said softly, just in different languages. Outside, the storm softened. The streets shimmered like a watercolored painting, edges melting, colors bleeding into one another. I could see our reflections in the window, our faces half lit, half shadowed. 2 strangers stitched together by rain. When it was time to go, she stood, tightening her coat around her. Do you believe in fate? She asked suddenly. I hesitated. I'm not sure. She smiled, eyes glinting with something I couldn't name. I do. I think every soul meets twice, once to love and once to heal. Which are we? I asked before I could stop myself. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached out and brushed the back of my hand, a brief, electric touch that lingered long after she pulled away. Maybe fate introduced us so one of us could save the other someday. Then she turned, stepped into the fading rain, and disappeared into the crowd, a flash of gray coat and silver hairpin, swallowed by the city's heartbeat. I stood there long after, her words echoing in the rhythm of the rain. Back then, I thought it was poetry, a line meant to fade with the storm. But now, looking back, it feels like prophecy, because I didn't know that day that love can be both a meeting and a warning, and that sometimes the ones who save us are the ones who vanish first. Asterisk days after that first meeting, her laughter still echoed in my mind, soft, uneven, like the memory of sunlight through rain. I told myself it was nothing, just another stranger whose story would fade with time. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. I saw her again a week later, this time in the library near my studio. She was sitting by the window, surrounded by anatomy books and cold coffee, her hair tied up messily like she was at war with sleep. Her fingers traced diagrams of the human heart. And I remember thinking she looked like someone trying to understand her own. When she noticed me, she smiled as if she'd been expecting it. Still chasing beauty in chaos? She teased. Always, I said. And you? She gestured to her pile of notes. Still trying to fix what I don't understand. I sat beside her, pretending to read, but really, I was memorizing the way her eyes softened whenever she found an answer. It was strange how quickly comfort settled between us, like we'd skipped the part where strangers tiptoe around each other's silence. Over time, we began to orbit closer. Rainy days turned into study sessions into dinners into hours of quiet where words weren't necessary. Sometimes she'd come to my studio after her shifts, still in her scrubs, exhaustion painted under her eyes. She'd sit on the floor while I worked, her head resting on her knees, watching the strokes form on the canvas. "You always paint sadness so beautifully," she said once, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because sadness listens," I replied. "Joy speaks too loudly to notice details." She smiled faintly, turning her gaze to the unfinished painting before us, a faceless figure reaching toward light. "Then maybe you should let me teach you what joy looks like." And she did, in small ways. In the warmth of shared coffee, in the music that filled my studio at midnight, the way she'd fall asleep, mid-sentence, trusting that I'd stay until she woke. But there were moments I couldn't read. Shadows in her expression when she thought I wasn't looking. Like she was trying to remember how to stay, even as something inside her kept whispering to leave. One evening, we went to the old pier outside the city. The sunset painted the sky in colors I couldn't name, violet fading into bruised gold. She leaned against the railing, her hair catching the wind. "Do you ever think about how fragile we are?" she asked suddenly. I looked at her all the time. She turned to me then, her eyes bright with something I didn't understand. "It's strange. We spend our whole lives trying to save others, but sometimes I think we forget how to save ourselves." I wanted to ask what she meant, but her hand brushed mine, and the world fell quiet. For a moment, everything, the waves, the gulls, even the air, held its breath. "I feel safe with you," she whispered. And in that instant, I thought love was as simple as that. It's a broken people holding each other up against the tide. But love, I would learn, isn't simple. It's a promise made in silence, one that fate loves to test. Weeks turned into months. We became each other's habit. She'd wake me at dawn to watch the sunrise before her shifts. I'd walk her home past midnight. Pretending not to notice how her steps slowed near my door, she started appearing in my paintings without me meaning to. Her silhouette, her hands, her eyes that looked like they belonged to someone who'd seen too much and stayed kind anyway. One night she caught me sketching her. "You make me look like someone you're afraid to lose," she said. "Maybe I am." She looked down, a flicker of pain crossing her face. Then quietly, "Don't be." The air between us felt heavy, not with distance, but with things left unsaid. Later that night, as she was leaving, she paused at my door. "I'm applying for something," she said softly. "A medical exchange overseas. It's competitive. I might not get in." I tried to sound casual, and if you do, her eyes searched mine uncertain. "Then I guess fate will decide what happens next." When she walked away, her reflection lingered in the rain-soaked pavement, blurred, dissolving like watercolor again. I didn't know it then, but that was the night the distance began. The night fate quietly drew its first line between us. The night of my first exhibition felt like the beginning of everything I'd ever wanted. The gallery lights were warm, golden, almost merciful. My name gleamed on the entrance banner, letters printed neatly against white silk. Aiden Park, the vanishing light. People filled the room, their voices blending into a low hum. Cameras clicked, glasses clinked, and somewhere between the noise, I kept turning toward the door, waiting for her. Hannah, she had promised she would come. Promised she'd stand beside me for once, not in the shadows of my work. I checked my phone again. No messages. Still, I told myself she'd appear. She always did. Right when I was about to give up on her, the first painting to sell was Resonance. It was the piece I had made after she fell asleep in my studio one night, her head resting against my shoulder. I painted her breath soft, steady, almost holy. People said it carried something divine. I told them it carried truth. Then, through the blur of reporters, I heard it, her name. Someone whispered it like a spark. "Dr. Hannah Lee, she's here!" I turned. She entered wearing a pale silver dress, the same color as her old umbrella. The crowd seemed to shift toward her, admiration first, then applause. She smiled politely, but her eyes flickered, searching. When they landed on me, they froze, then softened, then turned away too quickly. She didn't come to me. She went to the far end of the gallery where my largest painting hung. The Healer. A ripple moved through the room. Cameras began flashing. A man in a suit from the hospital's PR team raised a microphone, his voice cutting through the noise. "We're honored tonight," he said, "to reveal this collaborative campaign, a merging of art and medicine. The visionary concept of Dr. Hannah Lee brought to life through this remarkable piece." Applause, bright, deafening. For a second I didn't understand. Then I saw it, the small brass plaque beneath my painting. Concept by Dr. Hannah Lee. Art in partnership with Aiden Park. But there had been no partnership. No permission. No conversation, only silence. The room began to spin. Reporters crowded around her, asking about inspiration, purpose, meaning. And she smiled faintly, speaking with practiced calm. She said things I had once told her in the quiet hours of my studio. My words, my metaphors, my grief rewritten in her voice. Every syllable felt like betrayal, beautifully delivered. Cruelly rehearsed, I tried to reach her through the crowd. She looked at me once, eyes trembling with something that looked like regret, or maybe pity. Then she looked away. The PR man clapped his hands again. Dr. Lee's message is simple. Art should heal. And through her vision, it now does. More applause. Brighter. Louder. I couldn't breathe. I left before the speeches ended. Rain had started outside, soft at first. Then fierce like the sky itself couldn't stand what it had witnessed. Minutes later, she followed me out, heels clicking against wet pavement. Aiden, I turned, voice breaking. "Why?" She stood under the awning, hair damp, mascara bleeding down her cheek. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. You used my work." Her silence confirmed it. "I told them it was yours," she whispered. "But they refused to fund it unless it came under my name. They said, an artist doesn't have reach. A doctor does. I thought you thought betrayal was a form of mercy?" She flinched. "I did it to protect the project. The meaning..." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You did it because you wanted to be seen. And you used me to glow." Rain poured between us, washing her tears away before they could fall. She reached into her purse, pulling out something small, the necklace she always wore, the one with our initials. It glimmered faintly under the streetlight. "I never wanted it to end like this," she said. "But maybe fate don't," I cut in. "Don't blame fate for your choices." For a moment. Her mask cracked, the proud doctor replaced by the girl from the cafe, holding an umbrella too small for two. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and then she turned, walking away into the rain, until her figure dissolved into the blur of headlights and water. When I went home, her necklace was waiting on my table. I didn't know how she had left it there. Maybe she still had the key. Maybe fate had opened the door. All I knew was that it was tangled, knotted beyond recognition. As if even it couldn't let go. I sat in silence. The sound of rain whispering through the window, and realized something cruelly simple. Sometimes love doesn't end when the person leaves. It ends when they stop recognizing the pain in your eyes. That night, I painted until dawn, only shades of gray. The canvas didn't look like her anymore. It looked like absence. The final frame. The necklace lying beside a wet paintbrush. Outside, rain turns the city lights into bleeding colors, beauty dissolving into something that almost looks like loss. After that night, silence became my language. The phone stopped ringing. My inbox filled with questions I didn't answer from journalists, collectors, friends who pretended to care. Everyone wanted to know what happened between the artist and the doctor. The story spread faster than truth ever could. They called it a collaboration gone wrong, but it wasn't collaboration. It was erasure. She disappeared before I could confront her again. No trace, no messages. Her apartment, empty. Even the plants on her balcony were gone, as if she'd uprooted herself completely at first. I thought it was another performance that she'd reappear when the storm calmed, ready to explain, to rewrite what we'd broken. But weeks passed, then months, and every unanswered call felt like another version of her vanishing. I walked through the city like a ghost. Everywhere I looked, I saw her in reflections, in shadows, in the sound of rain against windows. I started painting again, not because I wanted to, but because the silence demanded it. Each canvas became an echo of her absence. A hand reaching out, a woman dissolving into mist, a pair of eyes unfinished, so I couldn't remember their exact color anymore. Critics began to call it the Vanishing series. They said it was brilliant, raw, mournful, transcendent. I knew better. It wasn't art. It was evidence. Evidence of how devotion can rot into obsession. When love is taken away too suddenly, I started wearing her necklace. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe because I needed something to anchor me to the version of her that still felt real. The chain was cold against my skin, a ghost's touch. One night, I dreamt of her. She stood in the rain again, wearing the same silver dress from the exhibition. Her lips were pale, her voice trembling. When fate calls, she whispered, we don't argue. When I woke, the room smelled of rain, though the windows were closed. The necklace had left a faint bruise on my throat, like a memory refusing to fade. I started searching for her, again, hospitals, universities, clinics. I asked anyone who might have seen her, even strangers with similar eyes. No one knew. Some looked at me with pity, others with fear. She left the city, one nurse told me, after I begged for answers. Something happened at her old hospital. She resigned suddenly. No forwarding address. I thanked her, but my chest felt hollow. The word resigned echoed like a confession. That night, I returned to the pier, the place where she'd said she felt safe with me. The air was colder now, the water darker. I sat there until the tide rose high enough to sting my shoes. For a moment, I thought I saw her across the pier, standing in the mist. The same outline, the same tilt of her head. Hannah, I called, but it was only fog. Always fog. I started writing letters I never sent. Dozens of them, sealed and hidden in the drawers of my studio. Letters that began with, "If fate ever lets you read this," and ended with silence. In one I wrote, "You once said every soul meets twice. Once to love, once to heal. But what if the healing never comes? What if one soul keeps waiting at the edge of both?" I didn't notice how thin I'd become, how pale. My friends stopped visiting. My mother called and asked if I was still eating. I told her I was fine, but the truth was, I only consumed memories. Every street she'd walked became sacred. Every place she'd smiled turned into a grave. Then one day I found a small envelope slipped under my studio door. No sender. No handwriting I recognized. Inside was a single Polaroid blurred, faint, almost erased. but I could make out her silhouette, standing in front of a hospital overseas, the back red, in faint ink. Some wounds must heal where they began. My hands shook as I read it. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a distance I was meant to respect. I sat on the studio floor, surrounded by unfinished canvases, the letter trembling in my hand. Outside, thunder rolled, the same sound that had filled the cafe the day we met. I closed my eyes, letting the memory replay her laughter under the rain, her promise that one of us would save the other. But I finally understood something she couldn't say aloud. She had left not because she stopped loving me, but because she couldn't love herself beside me anymore. And fate, that cruel, poetic thing, had chosen which of us needed saving first. The final image fades, a dark studio. One window open, rain falling inside, a single painting on the wall, blank, except for a faint outline of her shadow in the corner, as if she'd stepped out of it and never returned. Sleep became a stranger after she left. Nights bled into mornings without permission, time no longer passing, only circling. I painted until my hands cramped, until color no longer spoke. I thought if I buried myself deep enough in creation, I could suffocate the grief before it swallowed me. But grief is patient. It waits. By the time autumn came, I was running on caffeine, nicotine, and the ghosts of her voice. Every canvas in my studio was a confession she'd never hear. I stopped answering calls from galleries. My agent said, "You're burning out." He didn't understand I wasn't burning out. I was burning through. The city outside my window pulsed with life, neon, laughter, lovers holding hands under umbrellas. I couldn't look. Every sound felt like mockery. Every light felt like accusation. That night, the rain returned heavy, unrelenting, like the one we first met under. The smell of wet asphalt filled my lungs, sharp and clean. I thought maybe I'd drive, just to feel something moving again. The streets were slick mirrors, reflecting the world upside down. I drove without direction, windshield wipers barely keeping up. Her necklace hung from the rearview mirror. Swinging gently with each turn, a small silver moon caught between flashes of lightning. Maybe fate introduced us so one of us could save the other someday. Her voice echoed in my head. Fragile, stubborn, unforgettable. I pressed harder on the gas, the road blurred headlights. Raindrops, memories all blending into a single streak of white. I didn't see the curve until it was too late. Tires screamed. Metal shuddered. The world flipped, folded, and everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, the air was full of glass dust, the smell of blood, silence. I couldn't move. Pain threaded through my ribs like wire. Somewhere in the distance, a siren howled. I remember thinking, so this is what fate feels like when it decides for you. Then, a voice, soft, urgent, trembling. Stay with me. Please, stay with me. A hand touched my cheek, warm, trembling. For a second, I thought I was dreaming her again. The same warmth I'd lost, the same tone that could steady storms. I tried to speak, but blood filled my mouth. My vision blurred, and in that blur I saw it, the silver glint around her neck. The necklace. Her necklace. Through the haze, I caught a glimpse of her face, a surgical mask. Eyes wide, wet with tears. Hannah, her name caught on my breath like a secret refusing to die. She looked older, thinner. Her hair was shorter now, tucked neatly under a surgical cap. But it was her. No illusion could ache like that. You shouldn't have survived that, she whispered, voice breaking. I wanted to laugh or cry or ask how she'd found me, but the pain swallowed everything. Darkness pressed against my eyelids, heavy, merciful. When I woke again, everything was white. Walls, sheets, light. Machines hummed quietly beside me. My body was a map of bruises and bandages. Then I saw her. She was standing by the window, her back to me, still in her scrubs. The same necklace glimmered faintly against her throat, the one she'd left behind. My throat tightened. Hannah, she froze. Slowly, she turned, her eyes wide. the air between us thick with years of unspoken things. "You're awake," she said, barely audible. "You were there." Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked like she wanted to run and stay at once. How I started. But the question dissolved. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You shouldn't have survived." The crash. It was she stopped herself. I was on duty that night. It was supposed to be a routine emergency. When I saw your name on the file, she broke off, pressing a hand against her mouth. I tried to sit up, pain searing through my side. "You disappeared, Hannah. You left me with silence." And now her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "Fate doesn't erase. It circles back," she said softly. "I guess this is proof." The room felt too small for the weight of it all. She reached for the monitors, adjusting something just to keep her hands busy. The light caught the silver pendant, the one with our initials, the one that should have been buried with goodbye. I stared at it, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "You still wear it?" Her hand froze midair. Then she looked at me, really looked, and whispered, "No. I wear it to remind me who I hurt." Silence flooded in, thicker than the oxygen that kept me breathing. Before I could respond, she turned toward the door. "You need rest," she said, voice breaking. "That's the only thing I can give you now." And then she was gone. The door closed softly behind her, but the echo stayed, that familiar, terrible echo of someone who keeps saving you just enough to make you remember what loss feels like. I stared at the ceiling, the machines, the necklace swinging faintly in her absence, and for the first time I realized fate hadn't taken her away. It had hidden her until I was broken enough to see her again, but I couldn't tell if that was mercy or punishment. The final image, a hospital corridor bathed in sterile light. Hannah walks away slowly, her hand brushing the necklace. Inside the patient's room, the faint reflection of her figure lingers in the window to ghosts. Still orbiting the same wound, asterisk. When I woke fully, the world felt both the same and irreversibly altered. White walls, antiseptic air, the soft beeping of monitors, all familiar, yet empty without her beside me. And then I saw her. Hannah, standing just outside the bed, her back straight, her eyes fixed on something far away. She wore scrubs, surgical cap pressed neatly to her head, that silver necklace glinting faintly in the pale hospital light. I called her name before I could stop myself. "Hannah," she flinched, like my voice had struck her across time and distance. When she finally turned, our eyes met. I didn't see the confident, composed doctor I'd imagined for so long. I saw the girl from the rainy cafe, the one who had laughed at my soaked shirt, the one who had whispered about fate, the one I had never stopped searching for. "Don't speak," she said, her voice trembling despite her attempt at composure. "You're not supposed to remember me." The words cut sharper than the crash had. My hands trembled. "Remember you? Hannah, you were gone." "I thought I had to leave," she interrupted, almost pleading. "I didn't disappear because I didn't care. I disappeared because I couldn't stay, not without losing myself completely." Her hands hovered near the bed rails, as if the space between us were a fragile thing she could break with a single motion. I could see her struggle to balance between the doctor she had become and the girl she had once been, the one who had held an umbrella over both, our heads in promise that maybe fate had a purpose. I almost didn't make it here in time, she admitted softly, her voice breaking. "When your ambulance arrived, I was already on call. I thought, maybe fate had already taken you. And yet, here you are, alive, somehow." The words hung between us, thick and impossible to untangle. I reached out, my hand hovering inches from hers. She didn't pull away, but she didn't take it either. "I wore this for you," she whispered, touching the silver pendant. "Not because I'm yours. Not anymore. But because it reminds me who I hurt and who I couldn't save even when I thought I could." My chest tightened. "You think I don't know what it feels like to be left behind? To be erased from someone's life without reason?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back fiercely. "I never wanted to erase you. I tried. I tried to protect you from everything I couldn't control, from the hospital, from the mistakes, from myself. I thought I could save you by disappearing. The irony was brutal. I had spent months painting her absence, mourning her vanishing. Only for her to reveal it had been a kind of mercy, or at least she had meant it as such. I closed my eyes, the rhythm of my heart echoing the rainstorms from our past. When I opened them, she was closer, leaning against the edge of my bed, the silver glint of her necklace catching the light. "I don't understand," I admitted, voice barely a whisper. "Why leave? Why let me think you hated me?" "I didn't want you to see me break," she said, finally letting her voice tremble. "I wanted you to live, Aiden, to heal without being tied to my mistakes. And maybe in the end, I thought I could save myself only by disappearing." Her confession left a hollow ache in my chest, the same ache I had tried to paint out of existence. But it had only grown larger with time. We sat there, two people orbiting the same wound, neither daring to cross the final line. The hum of the machines, the quiet drip of fluid, even the distant echo of footsteps outside, everything amplified the tension. The unspoken history between us. "I want to ask everything," I said finally. "Why, where? How? But I can't, not yet." She nodded, as if she had expected this. Later, she whispered, "When you're ready. But for now, rest. That's all I can do. You survived, Aiden. That's proof enough." I watched her leave the room, every step deliberate, every movement measured. The door closed softly, but her presence lingered in the air, in the shadows. In the silver reflection of the necklace, I realized then that fate hadn't returned her to me by chance. It had returned her so that the truth could unfold slowly, painfully, like a wound being stitched together after years of neglect. And I understood some returns aren't for reunion. They are for reckoning. Alone, I traced the outline of the necklace in my mind, imagining her voice whispering through the sterile quiet. "You weren't meant to forget me. You were meant to survive me." And in that revelation, a strange calm settled over me. The storm outside, the storm within, both felt momentarily stilled. I didn't know what would come next. But for the first time in months, I felt the faintest spark of something I had almost lost forever. Hope. The final image. Hannah's silhouette, treating down the hospital corridor. The silver necklace glints faintly in the fluorescent light. Outside, the first hints of sunrise begin to pierce the rain clouds, promising the return of warmth after a long, cold night. Asterisk, the nights after her return were restless. I lay in the hospital bed long after the monitors fell silent, staring at the ceiling and tracing the shadows that moved with the flickering fluorescent light. Every reflection in the glass, every muted footstep outside my room, reminded me of her, not as the doctor who saved me, but as the girl who vanished. I couldn't stop thinking about the gap between us, the months of absence, the silences, the unanswered questions that had built themselves into walls I didn't know how to scale. Finally, I found her in the hospital garden. The night was cold, the air thick with the scent of wet leaves and antiseptic. Moonlight draped over her like a halo, illuminating her hair, shorter now. And the silver necklace that caught the light even in the dark, she was alone. Knees drawn to her chest, staring at the reflection of the moon on the puddles beneath the trees. I approached quietly. She didn't turn. "Hannah," I said softly. She flinched but didn't speak. I sat beside her, careful not to close the space too quickly. After a long pause, she finally exhaled. "You deserve to know," she whispered, voice trembling. "Everything." I waited. She told me how my paintings had been used in the hospital campaign without her knowledge. A mentor had stolen her concept, presented it as hers to secure funding, recognition, power. When the truth came to light, she had taken the blame to protect her medical license. She had disappeared, resigned from the program, vanished from the city. "I thought if I disappeared, if I left, maybe you wouldn't be hurt by my mistakes," she said. I thought, hiding would be mercy. But it wasn't. It was just another form of betrayal. I didn't speak. The garden was silent, save for the soft rustle of rain-wet leaves. My heart beat with the rhythm of all the months I'd spent imagining her gone, imagining her as someone who had chosen me over her own ambition, Imagining betrayal when it had been sacrifice, she reached for my hand, tentative, almost afraid. "I tried to send letters," she confessed, "but they came back, unopened. Maybe fate. Maybe you weren't ready." Her eyes glistened, and for the first time since she returned, I saw something I hadn't dared hope for: vulnerability. Not the confident, untouchable doctor, not the distant, unreachable ghost, the girl I had met under the rain, the one who had laughed at my soaked shirt, who had believed in fate, in saving. "In us. I thought leaving would protect you," she whispered. "But all I did was leave my shadow in your life. All I did was haunt you." The necklace glinted faintly against her throat, a pale reminder of everything she had left behind. I reached for it, and she didn't pull away. "You carried this all these months?" I asked. She nodded. "Not because I belonged to you anymore, but because it reminded me who I couldn't forget, and who I hurt." Swallowed, my throat tight. "You were never the villain, Hannah. You were human, and I made you the villain in my mind because I didn't understand your absence." She leaned against me finally, a quiet surrender that spoke of months of pain compressed into seconds. "I didn't disappear to hurt you," she said. "I disappeared to survive myself. I thought, maybe I could heal if I let you go." I held her hand, the silver pendant pressed between our palms. "You've been surviving alone, and I've been surviving in your absence. Maybe we can start surviving together now." She closed her eyes, the rain glinting on her lashes. "I don't know if we can," she whispered. "Not yet, but I want to try." The air between us felt impossibly heavy, yet full of something fragile and luminous: hope, perhaps, or the quiet beginning of forgiveness. For the first time since the crash, since the betrayal, since the months of absence, the garden felt alive. The moonlight shimmered on the puddles, turning them into mirrors of possibility. I realized then that the truth was simple, yet cruelly complicated. She hadn't abandoned me. She had been caught in the crossfire of ambition, guilt, and survival. And now she had returned, not perfect, not untouchable, but honest. The night wrapped around us like a soft promise, the necklace swinging faintly between us, tethered to what had been lost and what might yet be found. "I can't promise it will be easy," she said. "I don't want easy," I replied. "I want the truth. And right now, this is it." And for the first time, in the quiet of the moonlit garden, I believed it might be enough. The final image: moonlight reflects on the rain-drenched garden. The silver necklace glows faintly, resting against her chest as we sit side by side, two broken people tethered by shared history, beginning the slow work of healing. The hospital room was quiet, the machines humming a lullaby of survival. I sat on the edge of the bed, tracing the outline of her silver necklace in my mind, its faint gleam catching the morning light, like a memory that refused to fade. Hannah had returned, confessed, revealed her truths. Yet even now I could feel the pull of distance, the unspoken knowledge that some separations were inevitable. She stood by the window, pale light brushing her face. Her eyes were soft, tired, and unreadable, the girl I had loved. The doctor who saved me, and now, someone I might never fully reach again? "I have to go," she said softly, her voice fragile, carrying years of unsaid apologies. "You're leaving?" My voice cracked, betraying the calm I tried to hold. She shook her head, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Not forever. Just for now. There are things I need to fix, things that don't belong to us anymore." I wanted to argue, to plead, to tell her that no distance could undo what we had shared. But I knew better. Some love is not about possession. Some love is about release. She stepped closer, the silver pendant resting over her heart. Her fingers brushed mine briefly, a small, electric farewell. "I'm leaving this for you," she whispered, holding out a folded envelope. I took it, my hands trembling. Inside was a letter, written in her delicate, familiar script. "You once said art should heal. You were right. You saved me, even when I couldn't face you. If fate ever allows it, maybe we'll meet again, not as what we were, but as what we've become." I looked up. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything, she replied. Just promise me you'll live and paint. And remember that you deserve to be happy, even if I can't be the one there to see it. I nodded slowly, feeling a weight lift and settle all at once. A strange serenity replaced the ache I had carried for months. She had returned to heal me, to show the truth, and now she was leaving, not to punish, but to free us both. She lingered a moment longer, glancing at the canvases I had painted since her disappearance. My vanishing series, The Healer. The countless portraits of absence and longing, all of them whispers of her shadow. You've grown, she said softly. Stronger, braver, more. You. I smiled faintly, the first genuine smile in months. And you. She hesitated, then nodded. I hope so. The sound of her heels against the hospital floor echoed like a metronome marking the passing of an era. I didn't move to stop her. I didn't try to hold her hand. Some departures demand silence, not protest. When the door closed behind her, the room felt emptier than before. But for the first time, it was a deliberate emptiness, a space where healing could grow, rather than a wound festering in absence. I opened the letter again, reading her words slowly, savoring each syllable as if it were a brushstroke across my soul. And then I placed the necklace on the nightstand, untangled, gleaming a memory preserved, not a chain to bind me. Outside, the city was waking. Rain clouds parted to reveal soft sunlight, spilling gold across wet streets. I imagined her walking somewhere beyond my reach, free, her steps echoing faintly in my chest. I picked up a blank canvas. The brush felt heavy in my hand at first, as if it remembered all the grief, betrayal, and longing it had captured. But then, I dipped it into paint, letting the colors flow. I painted the woman in the silver dress, walking under the rain, yet her face was not sorrowful. It was luminous, untouchable, a testament to resilience, to truth, to survival. I titled it Fate's Mercy. When the gallery called to ask who inspired it, I smiled softly, almost to myself. She was the one who vanished, I said, so I could finally see. And in that moment I realized justice had its own quiet language. Not in revenge, not in rage, not in clinging to what was lost, but in legacy, in the way love can leave a mark, teach you to heal, and give you the courage to live, even when the one you love must walk away. The room felt warm now, suffused with morning light. The silver necklace caught it, glimmering faintly, a reminder of what had been, and of everything I could still become. Outside, life continued, and I was ready to continue with it too. The final image, the painting on the easel, sun spilling across its edges. The woman in silver walks away under the rain, leaving behind nothing but light and the faint glimmer of a necklace, a story of love, loss, and quiet justice.